let's try to discuss why sudden events needs to be analyzed using momentum and impulses. Okay, so this is again the event that we discussed in the previous video. So let's think about what happens during the event. Okay, what happens during the event is that the ball A will come into contact with ball B, then it will accelerate ball B to a new velocity, then afterwards it will break away its contact from ball A. Okay, when the ball starts to be in contact, when ball A starts to be in contact with ball B, the moment where it touch, then that's the moment in which ball A will start to exert a force on ball B. But initially they only touch gently. Okay, then during the event it touch more and more extremely. Then after that, when they start to break away the contact from ball A, then they no longer be in contact. The force will be decreasing until once it breaks contact, the force drop back to zero. So what I'm trying to highlight here is that during the event, the force experienced by ball B is actually not constant. When they start to be in contact, the force is actually very mild. But as ball A crash into ball B, the force will spike up to a certain value, pushing ball B to accelerate until a certain point when ball B starts to want to break away from ball A, the force will drop back down. Then once it breaks contact, the force will become zero. So what happens during the process is that the force will spike up. Okay, it starts very mild when it starts to be in contact. Then when they crush onto each other very extremely, they will have a spike in the force. Then once they start to break away, the force will decrease back to zero. So what I'm trying to highlight here to you is that during a sudden event, the force experienced by the object of interest is actually not constant. Okay, when force is not constant, right, things actually gets quite difficult to analyze actually. Last time when we learned about sum of F is equals to ma, when we sketch a free body diagram to determine the net force, the free body diagram, the forces that you see in your free body diagram doesn't change throughout the journey of the object. Let's say you have an inclined plane problem. You have your object sliding down the inclined plane. The free body diagram is valid throughout the journey of the block down the inclined plane. No matter it's the early part of the journey, the middle part of the journey, or the final part of the journey, the free body diagram is valid throughout the whole journey. So that means by all the forces, the weight, the normal force, the kinetic friction, all these forces are constant throughout the journey. But for a sudden event, it's not like this. As you can see over here, there's a spike and the force went off to zero. So the force is not constant throughout the time. So when it's not constant, you cannot just analyze it using sum of F is equal to ma that we learn when we talk about Newton's law. Okay, it is still a valid theorem, but it's difficult to analyze using this method because the force is not constant, therefore the acceleration is not constant. And because the acceleration is not constant, you learned before in chapter 2 when we learned about kinematics of linear motion. When we talk about acceleration in our syllabus, we only limit ourselves to situation where the acceleration is constant. Only then you're able to use these 4 equations, because these 4 equations are called kinematics equations, and they're only used for situation where the acceleration is constant. But now because our force is not constant, our acceleration is not constant, therefore actually these 4 equations can no longer be used to analyze this kind of situation anymore. So you cannot analyze the situation using sum of F equals to ma, Newton's law. You also cannot analyze the situation using the kinematics equation that you have learned before. So actually we are a bit out of idea actually what we can use to analyze this kind of situation. And that's why we need to bring in this idea of impulse and momentum in order to analyze sudden events that look like this, in which the force is not constant with time. Okay, so in the next video, we're going through how we are going to use impulse momentum theorem to analyze sudden events.